From UFOs to psychic powers and government conspiracies, history is riddled with unexplained events. You can turn back now or learn the stuff they don't want you to know. A production of iHeartRadio.
Hello, welcome back to the show. My name is Matt.
My name is Noel.
They call me Ben. We are joined, as always, with our super producer, Paul Mission Control Decant. Most importantly, you are here, and that makes this the stuff they don't want you to know. It's the top of the week. It's a strange week, so what better time for some strange news? Alex Jones is back in hot water. We'll see how that shakes out. Steve Bannon might actually have to answer for some things in court. We'll see how that shakes out. But this is news you have probably already heard about, and that's not the point of strange news. We want to bring you the weird stuff from the dark corners of the internet. We want to bring you the stuff that if you looked on a map of the news would be from an area saying, "Here be serpents." Today we're diving into some stories from the world of technology, stories that may frighten you, stories that may inspire you if you are a more vigilante-minded person, and one story we really want to see what you think about. And it may not be appropriate for everybody, but I believe the three of us are quite excited, as always, to hear your opinions. So stay tuned. We'll give you a heads up for that last one, as it definitely is not appropriate for all listeners. But let's start with the scary stuff. So a lot of people, your faithful correspondents included, have been working from home for the majority of the pandemic. Many, many people have. At first, it was a safety measure for a lot of folks. And then eventually, for many folks, it evolved into a personal preference. I mean, before we begin, I think that's a good place to check in. We don't talk about it too much with each other because we hang out all the time. But what has you guys' experience been working from home primarily? I know we've all been popping in the office every so often.
Yeah, I do like the occasional office pop just to change things up. And they've been restocking the snacks again, which is a sign that civilization is returning to normal. To
Nature's
some degree.
healing.
It is. I don't mind it. I think we've gotten used to the flow of doing things this way. I do like doing it in person every now and again, but I really quite enjoy. I mean, I have a separate space, so I think that makes a big difference, because in my last house I did not, and that was not fun at all, which is why I moved. But in general, I'm good with it.
Yeah, I think setting my own hours has become a new thing. It's always kind of been a thing for us at this company, but actually having a place that I can walk a couple steps to and get some work done rather than drive, in my case, it was 15 to 30 minutes to a place, then come home. It's really changed my ability to work on different kinds of hours. Seriously, and actually, it's weird, and hopefully I'm not going to get in trouble for saying this, but to be able to take an hour during the day to actually get an errand done, like go to a place that's not open when I'm usually not working.
Absolutely. And
then work an extra hour later in the night or something. I think a lot of people have been taking advantage of that. It's just, the question is how much of an advantage is an individual taking with their workday hours? That's what employers are asking.
Yeah, there we go.
But we're in a results-driven space, right? Not to sound too, producerly. I mean, I think it's going to be clear to our employers if we're not pulling our weight. So at the end of the day, no one's policing exactly how we spend every second of our time, which I think for some people, continuing to work from home is a problem, because there's all this kind of nanny state technology that's being implemented, that's policing how many clicks people are logging on their keyboards and all that kind of stuff. To me, that would be a nightmare. I'd rather just go to the damn office if that was happening, but we're very lucky that's not the case for us.
As far as we know, not to be too Orwellian or paranoid. Yeah, for me personally, I prefer it because I keep late hours. I don't sleep as much as the average person. So my schedule's all over the place, and I quite enjoy it. We're a special case. Probably we have known for a long time that if anybody bothered to check our search histories on our work machinery, they would find some dark, disturbing things because of the nature of our vocation. But I love the way that we are segueing here to the big fear. Someone recently told me something quite insightful. They said, when you are working from home, you're not really, what's happening is that you're just now having your job invade your home. And for millions of people around the world, some of whom are listening today, that's not just a thought experiment anymore. And this leads us to the story that you dug up, Matt, which, to your credit, my old dear friend, is something that you have been talking about since like the week we met all those years ago.
I guess it's true.
It is. You told me.
We did, yeah. And it was when we were originally searching for the weird stuff that, as you said, shows up in our search histories and the websites that we end up on for way too long, because we have to read the entire thing. And sometimes other parts of that website are probably not safe for work, but hey, too bad. That's what we do. So with this in mind, the concept of work invading our home, it's the question is it just your work that is now being done at your home, or is it somebody from your work or something from your work that is physically looking at what you're doing, watching, like Noel said, keystrokes that you type in, clicks, maybe the number of clicks, maybe even having access to your camera or your microphone? That would be a little disturbing to imagine that somebody in some group at your office is keeping track of that. Well, that's what the Joint Research Councils and the European Commission and all kinds of other things like the UK's all-party parliamentary group, they want to know. They're looking into it. They're interested because there's lots and lots of concern from the collective of individuals who are aware of this kind of technology existing. And they put out some reports. And that's what we're talking about today. You can go to theregister.com and you can read an article titled "Workplace Surveillance Booming During Pandemic, Destroying Trust in Employers." That's trust in employers. The trust of the employee is what's being destroyed here. Okay, so if you go through this, you can read about the Joint Research Councils who have put out a report titled "Electronic Monitoring and Surveillance in the Workplace." This is something you can access. It's something you can download in PDF format. You can find it, especially if you go to that Register article, you can just click through and actually look at the thing. You can see an abstract to download the sucker. And within this report, guys, it's way more prevalent than I thought. We've discussed before the monitoring of kind of the gig economy, just by the sheer nature of what that means, right? It's a task that goes into a marketplace, then someone from the gig economy comes in and picks up that task. So the person who sent the task in wants to know what's happening. How, of these 10 steps, which one are we at right now? How long has it taken? How efficient is this? Now that one person from the gig economy, we can now rate that person depending on how well they did with that one task, and we can predict how they will function on the next task that they're assigned, right? And so on and so forth, building an entire structure of just people trying to get things done because everybody needs to make a little bit of money, or as much money as we can, right?
Got to get those coupons, man. It's the race. Yes. Who gets the most coupons before you die? You know what I mean? Neck and neck.
That's right. So you can imagine something we've discussed before on this podcast very recently, Ben. I believe we just talked about Amazon's Mechanical Turk system.
Yes.
Which is the thing that they have in place that monitors that very thing. right? How well is an employee doing? The only problem is this is human-directed AI functional technology, where it is a computer that is actually looking at all of the data and then sometimes making a decision about how well someone is performing. And as is the case there with some workforces, the AI is actually making the decision to send an email to an actual human employee that says you are no longer needed here. That is not always the case with many of these, because we're also talking about Uber, we're talking about Upwork, we're talking about lots and lots of different companies and systems, right? Mm-hmm. So that exists, right? That whole thing, monitoring how someone within the gig economy is functioning and like really looking at what everything they're doing while they're on the job. The other thing is employees like us, Ben, Noel, and myself, and Paul, and Alexis, looking at us and seeing what we're doing on a day-to-day basis by monitoring things like Microsoft Teams and Google Workspace and Slack, and checking to see how often we are responding, how long it takes for us to respond to an email, let's say, how many different meetings we have, what our schedules look like, keeping track of when we are logged in, if our computer is actually on or if our screen is locked. It's insane the amount of stuff that can be tracked and looked at from somebody who essentially holds the keys to one of those enterprise accounts. Sorry, it just really freaks me out.
Yeah, it's super freaky. I don't know about you guys, but I mean, I do a decent amount of work on my personal phone. I research a lot on my phone, my personal iPad. I do emails on my phone. I do our intercompany chat. I don't really go into my office or my studio unless I'm needing to do stuff that requires recording or a full screen situation, or I often will, kind of split my time between several different devices, some of which belong to me. And, we use Microsoft Teams, but not like a lot. It doesn't, I don't know. Do the companies have to acknowledge that they're doing this? Or is it just something that's been kind of discovered little by little?
It's often in your contract, and it will be a simple paragraph that just states the company reserves the right to monitor what you do with the equipment that it gives you.
Yeah, and this is more important for some industries than others. Consider industries wherein individual employees may generate a lot of patents or new research. If you are an engineer who creates something new and innovative and you did it on the company machine with company equipment, then of course they're going to want, their VIG. And they rightly deserve it. But yeah, it's usually lumped in a contract. If you are going to be quote unquote told, it's going to be lumped in with that kind of statement, which is like the reason why if I, for instance, this is the opposite of something productive like engineering, but if I, for instance, wrote a novel on a work machine and it became like the next Song of Ice and Fire or something, then there's a pretty valid legal argument that could be made, if our job were to be kind of evil, that they own a piece of it because these weren't their ideas, but these were their pieces of equipment. This is real. The camera thing especially, I believe in the UK, first, Microsoft will snitch at you at work like never before. Like Matt said, you got no idea. But I know that in the UK, a pretty comprehensive study or pretty thorough study found that camera technology in particular had exploded. 6 months ago, about 5% of people were being monitored if they were working from home by their company via camera. Now that number is at 13%. And, and now in the UK, 32% of people are being monitored in some way, if not cameras.
And Matt, isn't the takeaway of some of this probe that this is bad? This is actually anti-productive?
Yeah. Yeah, because all of this is a way for the employer to see which employees are doing great, which ones need improvement, which ones are going to get those sweet bonuses for Christmas and Boxing Day, which ones are, maybe on the outs, or they need a performance enhancement plan or whatever the hell companies call something, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm. Pippi Longstocking.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like that's the concept, right? But when each individual human employee knows that this kind of thing is happening, it may in fact make our productivity take a hit, because it's almost like it's not almost like there is a resentment towards that kind of helicopter parenting that's being done via our computers, by our computers. And, we're in a movement right now. Keep thinking back to several voicemails that we've gotten. We're in a movement right now where people are choosing not to go back to these specific office jobs for various reasons. But, this is just, you can just add this one to the to the mixtape of the reasons that people don't want to do that crap anymore.
And I mean, again, we're really lucky, us in particular, in our type of industry, because it is results driven. We have specific metrics that we have to meet. We have certain pieces of content that we're scheduled to produce every single week. And until the moment we fail to deliver, no one's really going to mess with us. At least that's my perhaps naive perception, but to me, I kind of bank on that, and it makes me feel
knocking on wood.
That's fair. I mean, of course, but it also, to me, from the perspective of we oversee people, guys. We're executive producers, and we work with teams, and I wouldn't want anybody on my team to feel like I'm up there, up in their business in that way. In fact, Portugal, as a country, just passed a law that makes it illegal for a boss to text or call an employee after hours. And I think that's something that's a little more empowering for the employee than this kind of crap.
Well, that's really great. That's work-life balance stuff, right? And that's the kind of thing that makes a job enjoyable or not, if you can turn the thing off and go on with your life and then turn it back on when you need to.
I think that's generally true for most people, but for me personally, I like I don't know. Well, I'm probably the worst example, but I'm pretty into this stuff. Like I kind of live it. So I want to know what happens when it happens. I don't save stuff for the swim back. Points to anybody who got that reference. Right? Yeah. And that's your, yeah. And so what Portugal is saying is, it quickly can become abusive, which is absolutely true. And that should be a matter of personal choice. Now, we also have to point out for anybody who is listening who is not currently in the U.S. or familiar with it, the U.S.'s policy toward things like vacation is it's cartoonish. You know what I mean? My friends in Europe are horrified when they hear the way vacations or things like paternity or maternity or parental leave work. So this is probably even more of a necessary law in the U.S. than it is in Portugal. But still, it's the future, and the monitoring thing is, it's funny that not funny, but it's odd that it becomes a contentious issue when we're talking about workplace monitoring, or quote unquote workplace monitoring, because it's only another extension, a smaller extension of the constant surveillance and monitoring that's occurring regardless of what laws are on the books. COINTELPRO never ended. Mass surveillance is just too powerful to not do it. It's the hottest thing.
Yep. Yes. And I know I could talk about this for a long time. I know you could too. I want to leave you with a couple of statements from the actual report that we mentioned at the top here that this Register article is referring to, just to kind of leave us with this, have us think about it, and we can hear hopefully from you just what you've experienced perhaps when it comes to surveillance in your own workplace. Here it is. Ben, you're going to love one of these statements because it's basically it's your mantra, like that it has been every time we talk about anything like this. It's in this report. Here we go. Quote, pervasive monitoring and target setting technologies in particular are associated with pronounced negative impacts on mental and physical well-being as workers experience the extreme pressure of constant real-time micromanagement and automated assessment. AI is transforming work and working lives across the country in ways that have plainly outpaced or avoid the existing regimes for regulation.
Yeah.
With increasing reliance on technology to drive economic recovery at home and provide a leadership role abroad, it is clear that the government must bring forward robust proposals for AI regulation to meet these challenges. So they're saying, what is it, Ben?
Technology always outpaces legislation. Same as it ever was.
Same as it ever was. And, that's the UK saying, we got to do something about this. We know we do, but we're not sure yet.
Right.
There you go.
Let's form some committees to figure out the meetings. You know what I mean? That is an accurate quote. And we'll see again, speaking of mantras, we'll see again, before civilization gets to a post-work environment, there is a very high probability that it will become what is called a post-worker environment. Meaning that the robots and the AI can do amazing things, or the machine consciousness can do amazing things for people, but no one can afford to engage with it because no one has a job anymore. Imagine the story of John Henry writ large for almost 8 billion people at once.
That's cool. We'll just hang out in the metaverse and play Pinochle with our robot pals.
Yeah, we're a lot of fun at parties.
All right, and with that, imagine the party where it is the three of us and you. What are you going to say about this stuff? What are you going to say? Send it our way. Right now, we're going to take a quick break, hear a word from our sponsor, and we'll be right back with more strange news.
And we're back with more strange news. I am here to talk about a story that is definitely in line with some of the ones that I've been bringing lately. I'm very fascinated with this new Wild West that is the cryptocurrency space, and all of the decentralized finance projects and NFTs and all of that. I think it's interesting on a couple of levels. One, that it sort of signals this weird new kind of gray area of the law when it comes to finance that, and as Ben mentioned, technology will always outpace the law. There was just talk of passing a law in 2023 that will allow the government to tax NFTs, those non-fungible tokens, which is a big deal because people were looking at that as kind of like a free money tax loophole. Sorry, guys, not going to be the case, though this is probably going to be decided more in the courts than it is with like one instant law, because there's going to be new ways around it with technology. Today, I'm not talking about that, though. I just wanted to mention it. Today, I'm talking about the rise of cryptocurrency scams that are getting more and more elaborate and bizarre. I've got kind of two stories. The second one will just be like a quick kind of follow-up to the first one. But the first story I want to talk about is this particular scam that is like something out of a horror movie. Honestly, Vice reported on this scam where individuals are hacking people's Instagram accounts and using them to communicate with people in their close friends circle in very, conversational language, saying, "Hey, buddy, long time. Been missing you. Hey, I got to tell you, I just found out about this incredible opportunity where you can spend $500 on Ethereum and you get $10,000 back. Isn't that insane? It's real and legit, bro. Totes." And then to that, you're like, I would probably do it. I might look into it a little bit or have a little back and forth, but you'd be more likely to be taken in by someone reaching out to you as a friend, giving you an inside scoop, than you would be, from some cold call or some kind of like email phishing scam or whatever. Like nobody reads their emails anymore, and friends very rarely email each other conversationally. It would be something you do through Instagram or WhatsApp or, any kind of peer-to-peer chat. But here's the creepy part. What they're doing is the people are investing the money. They're giving them instructions on how to do it. And then they're realizing it's a scam. Oh, crap. That wasn't Johnny at all. That was some kind of sock puppet or some kind of bot. And so then this person, Yeri Henfield, who's a victim of the scam, reached out to the person who had clearly taken control of this friend's Instagram and said, hey, what gives? Totally messed up. Not cool, bro. Give me my money back. To which the hacker responds, okay, I'll give you your money back. But first, you have to make a video where you sound super straight-faced and sincere promoting my crypto scam.
What?
That I am then, like a hostage style video of you saying, I am so-and-so and I am of sound mind. The date is blah, blah, blah. And I think that this crypto, no, you seem too shell-shocked, dude. Do it again. Do it again. Do it again till it's right. And then I will give you your money back. And when I give you your money back, it'll be confirmed to you via a text that will come to your phone that you need to accept. Okay, cool. That sounds good. What do you think that text going through the phone was? It was one of those third-factor authentication texts that allowed this person access to change the individual's Instagram password. Rinse and repeat.
No.
Rinse and repeat.
Jeez, dude.
Isn't that sinister?
Yeah. That's
This guy, Hensfield, who got scammed, he told Motherboard, quote, these people are the definition of sin. It makes me so sick thinking who else they scammed. My Instagram page is also a shrine to my girlfriend who passed away almost 6 years ago. The page is now a disgrace. And it's, it's not something that has been shut down yet. No one has fully figured out who the individual is. Let's see, unbeknownst to me, this is the part where they realized what was happening with the text. Unbeknownst to me, it was my Instagram request to gain access and change my password. And then the scammer takes that video and posts it as a story to the compromised Instagram account, to which, individuals in that person's friend group see that and follow up, potentially. And the article goes on to say the hacker had gone from not only taking money from Hensfield, but using his own Instagram account and connections to continue the scam on down the line. Even though the video was only there for 24 hours, it did seem to have converted a few people. He says he doesn't know why they took it down. Maybe it wasn't so convincing, but stories only last for 24 hours. So I don't know if he's confused. But even the original, like, Patient Zero account that they traced this back to, Jane Everything, they realized even that was a hijacked account. And this is something that's generating lots and lots of money. And it's just going to get more and more elaborate and more, hard to track. And these are not, non-tech savvy people that are getting, scammed by this. These are like Zoomers and Gen X folks that are like pretty savvy about this stuff. Even if someone who isn't like into crypto at all, if they hear someone that they know saying, hey, dude, spend $500, you can get $1,000 back. It's a trusted source. Who wouldn't give it a shot? And then at the end of the day, it's just $500 that you've lost. Now that's like not nothing. That's certainly a lot of money to many folks. It's a lot of money to me. Probably not worth, going to the mattresses over.
Well, it's also not worth taking money out of the proverbial mattress. I don't mean to sound like a jerk. I think the world of most of my friends and family, but I have a very short list of people that I would take financial advice from, and would prefer that to be completely transactional. I want to pay a pro instead of hearing the next hot grift. And sometimes it does work out. Our very good friend Casey Pegram, friend of the show. If you listen to Ridiculous History, you know him, you love him, or you've heard him on a couple of other things. Very old friend of ours. He was right about Bitcoin. There's no walking away from that one. Casey nailed it. But that is an exception. And you're right. The leveraging of trust is so very effective. That's because it's social engineering. That's what it is. It's just on a new platform. I would strongly advise, and I very rarely do advice, but I would strongly advise assuming that any link you get sent as a cold call link is a scam. Just think of it that way. And then contact them another way if you think it's legit, like a completely different way, and ask them about the link and ask them if they can resend it. And if it's legit, they will.
And my mom even, my mom is older. She's in her 70s and is not good at computers. She doesn't have an Amazon Prime account, but she got a telephone call saying that she owed thousands of dollars on Amazon Prime, or that someone was, using her Amazon Prime account. And she called me and asked me about it. I'm like, Mom, you don't have an Amazon Prime account. You use mine. Like, she just doesn't have it. So it's not a thing. But that, it's like older generations are being scammed with the phone because they still kind of trust the phone. People in our generation couldn't trust anything less. I mean, I am like suspicious when I get a phone call. I think most of us feel that way. Everyone's like, just texting or social media. But here's my follow up really quickly. Just going to wrap it up with some good news. The good news is that the blockchain, which is the open source record that tracks all of these transactions, it does just that. It is like a breadcrumb trail of all of these transactions that, if in the right hands, through the right lens, can lead to the perpetrator. And there are folks, or a community of folks on Twitter that are like, becoming these modern day digital vigilantes who are hunting down and exposing these crypto scammers. One.
Digilantes? Can we do digilantes?
Digilantes. Boom. God, that was a missed opportunity. Thank you, Ben, for saving that one. One in particular, there's a really great article about in Wired. The article is by Gian M. Volk-Pikeli. Talks about a particular one of these digilantes. Goes by the handle, which I'm thrilled about, Gabagool F, which is a reference to the very popular cured meat that is made famous, in Italian cuisine, but also in The Sopranos. That's how they say it. They say gabagool. It's actually, I think, a capicola maybe would be how a layman would say it, but it's gabagool in The Sopranos parlance. And ETH is a reference to Ethereum, which is the type of cryptocurrency that's typically used in these NFT exchanges and a lot of decentralized finance operations. And just really quickly, decentralized finance is these like peer-to-peer, middleman gets cut out kind of like funding projects that it could be around a particular type of token. It could be around a particular type of, charitable contribution or something like that. There's tons of different ones. And many of them exist in these smart chains that are like kind of separate, sub blockchains of different cryptocurrencies. But the point is, a lot of scams are going on. I talked recently about a rug pull operation where these influencers in the UK I think it was called, Crypto Eats. It was like an answer to Uber Eats that allowed you to pay with crypto. The whole thing was an absolute sham. All of the influencers, they were scammed too, but it also showed that how a lot of influencers will just take the money and shill for whatever, not even really thinking through if it's real or not, or if they even care. And Matt, you made a good point that, it sounded cool if someone was reached out to and everything seemed, legit. Maybe it wouldn't be such a stretch to take the money and do a little positive video about it. But I think that's the exception and not the rule. I think a lot of folks will just take money and talk about whatever, not even caring who it affects or, who it hurts. And that's a big problem in the decentralized finance world. And there's one in particular where a company, some of these projects do these things called token drops, where like if you've invested a certain amount of capital into these projects, you will be rewarded occasionally with free tokens that have a time limit on when you can cash them out to keep them from messing with the value of the tokens. But it's just a way of rewarding people that are kind of early adopters. And there's this one situation where Gabagool noticed that a company called Ribbon, or a DeFi project called Ribbon, did a token drop, and then one particular user was able to cash out all of those tokens from duplicate accounts and then convert them to Ethereum. I think it was somewhere in the neighborhood of $2.3 million that they stole quote unquote, stole. They broke the rules. They essentially had, advanced knowledge of this token drop. So they were able to time it right and game the kind of system, essentially what the SEC would call insider trading, which is illegal. 2.3 million, which isn't like a ton of money considering that DeFi projects are now worth $250 billion total. But this person traced it back to an individual who worked for the parent company, quote unquote, of this DeFi project. And they essentially said, okay, we didn't really break the law because there's a lawless world out there, but we did cross a line. The employee has been reprimanded and we will now return those funds. But again, that all happened because of this, blockchain sleuthing from Gabagool. And there's other ones, Zach, Sisyphus. There's a handful of these, Twitter kind of, crypto detectives that are out there doing God's work. And I think it's pretty cool.
Agreed.
So, there you have it. Something to keep an eye on still. But it's glad to know that these internet superheroes are out there, trying to keep people honest.
A balance for all things.
Exactly. Gabagool indeed. Let's take a break, and then we'll be back with one more bit of strange news.
Welcome back to the show, folks. This is the part we told you about at the top. This is the juice. This is the umami. This is the creepy stuff. This is something that I was on the fence about bringing and checked with the team beforehand. But perhaps one of the most important things at the top here is to say the following. If you are listening along to this show with your children, fellow conspiracy realists, this may not be appropriate for them, but also thank you for starting them young on some very important thoughts. If you are somewhat skittish about graphic material, if you are not the kind of person who thinks gross things are funny, then this may be where you pause the podcast. This is why we wanted this story to be the story at the very end today. And then even if you're not interested in it, fast forward a little bit because there is a special message I have at the end. But here's the headline. Matt, Noel, you guys know about this. We have talked a lot about deep learning, about neural networks, about applying AI in a generative sense. Probably the version of this that's most familiar to people is actually a really cool meme / joke, wherein someone says, hey, I fed thousands of hours of Batman or Seinfeld or It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia or president's speeches into this AI program, and it generated its own thing. And then waka, 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 look how wacky this is. There are great examples of it. Many are quite enjoyable. The vast majority of those, of course, are written by clever comedic people rather than machines at this point. To get into this, I'll say something that is that I don't know if we talked about too much on the show. So we know that war drives innovation, right? War drives science. War drives medicine. War drives transport. War drives economies. Sex also, in a very real way, drives technology. For anybody old enough to remember VHS tapes, the reason VHS became like a world standard is because that's what pornographic studios went with. And so we didn't say this out loud when we've been talking about AI. We're talking about, AI, it's kind of like a child soldier, which is disturbing and true. We didn't talk about it when we talked about all the beautiful potential it has for art or the weird way it explores ethics. But it was only a matter of time, folks, before someone gazed upon the new exciting realm of the synthetic mind and said, can we use this to make porn? And that's what happens. That is exactly what has happened. We have a guy named Eric Shardcore Drass to thank for this. He is the creator of something called the machine gaze, which uses machine learning tools to generate what this software thinks is pornography.
Is this like CGI creatures, like CGI figures?
I'll show you.
Okay.
All right. So I am sending you, guys, in the chat here, I am sending you a very short video. It's about 3 minutes. We can just have it playing on the background of what the machine learning algorithms seem to think is intercourse. And I just want to be honest, I don't know who the audience is. I don't think it's humans. The music does not help. but it is.
I'm hearing a heartbeat.
Yes. Yeah.
A drone.
Uh-huh. It's a little more David Lynch, right?
Oh my God. Oh, I think it's cool.
Playboy.
I would totally project this like behind like a psychedelic rock band. This is like the kind of shit you see in like a gallery, you know, like it's called Four Hands too. It even looks like a digital art project.
Yeah.
Yeah. But would you
wank to it? No, I don't see anything sexy about this at all. It's just cool.
Yeah. We're not the target audience again, I think, but it's weird because it was only a matter of time before something like this happened. Right? I mean, that's just how people work. So here's what Drass finds interesting about this. He says, by turning the AI on the domain of porn, you make imagery that's not pornography, but is fleshy. You can see the roots that it's come from. He says it starts to trigger the similar parts of your brain, but in slightly the wrong way. So a bit of a uncanny valley, dream-like quality. Matt, your facial expression here is priceless.
Dude, it's exactly what you're describing.
I am strangely finding myself becoming titillated and aroused while watching this video.
Okay.
So here, for him, the underlying question, this is another quote, is what do machines with no concept of sexuality or sexual behavior see when they look at this content? And he fed a lot of content, we'll call it, into these programs. For me, what's strange about it is it's a Rorschach of flesh is really, I think, a way to describe it. And the dreamlike quality is a huge part of it is due to the music. I wonder whether Drass had experimented with generating audio as well, and that was just too weird, like these not quite human kaleidoscopes and sonic fractals of moans and exclamations. That's what would have occurred, I imagine. And this...
that sounds amazing. AI generated sounds from that same
sexy
content?
Noises. Yeah. Well, I will tell you, watching this, I don't have the sound off, but if it had like a sexy saxophone on top of it, I think that might really take it to the next level.
Listen, we're just going to do this real time for a second, just to give the listener an idea.
Okay.
We're just going to sample. You ready? See if you can hear this from my headphone. You ready, Noel, Ben?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, go for it.
It's
yeah.
Very David Lynch.
That's
very David
stuff.
Lynch.
All the flesh must be sacrificed.
All hail the new flesh. Is this the new flesh they were talking about?
Wouldst thou like to live deliciously? Ask AI. Where are the boundaries? Yeah, so we predicted, I think civilization predicted the emergence of deep fakes, and they're still kind of emergent, but this is something different because in a way, this is asking, this is like asking someone who's never seen something, someone who hasn't been sighted since birth. This is like asking them to describe an image in a dream, right? There's not a frame of reference.
It immediately makes me think of the Deep Dream software and the neural network kind of uncanny valley psychedelic kind of hellscape that was those videos, which I love. I think those are super cool. They've sort of gotten a little played out and almost like a little cliche at this point, but at the time I thought it was really neat, and this really makes me think of that, only it's all just flesh and intertwined kind of bodies.
Yeah, and this is I do think that this is important work because reproduction is biologically the primary goal of the human species. Everything else is just sort of extracurricular stuff built around that, right? And it makes sense that this potentially fundamental shift in civilization would address one of the fundamental bedrocks of civilization as it is commonly understood. The question is, do the programs, do the algorithms understand what they're doing? That verges into philosophy. And we're already kind of in the deep water of poetry and poetic thought here, or poetic science, as Ada Lovelace would say. The next question is this truly generative? Is it only referential? Has Dross been steering it? Like, what kind of did this human individual's predilections play any role in it? Like, I don't think it's offensive for me to point out, since we are in the adult portion of today's show, that if it was based entirely on Quentin Tarantino's taste, we might just see a bunch of like feet, right? Now, is that too low a blow?
Not at all. I mean, feet pics are like internet currency, these days.
So weird. Well, if you're not hurting anybody, go forth, do your thing, live your life. But this was fascinating to me because of what it means for the future. This means that there is a world in which I'm going somewhere here that's not gross. This means there is a world in which my dream of AI generated films and scripts becomes even more possible, increasingly plausible. There could be, think past the pornography and whatever silly taboos humans have around that stuff, and think about the world in which you could say, I want a film computer. I want a film with Keanu Reeves and Marilyn Monroe, and I want it to be about the night that Edgar Allan Poe died, and I want it to be a musical, kind of like, West Side Story or Hamilton. And then there could be a program that did that. This is a within our lifetimes possibly thing if humanity keeps it together. Yeah.
Well, do you think stuff like this can replace like human imagination? And like, do you think we'll have AI that'll be smart enough to? I mean, I think it requires a shift in what we expect out of a story. Like, right. I think on a long enough timeline, maybe a computer could generate a story that the society of that day would consider acceptable. But I don't think they could ever be as robust and imaginative as the stuff even like content has gotten dumbed down over time in our lifetime. And like it's much more remarkable when something truly original and thoughtful comes up, whether in music or film or television or whatever, because so much stuff is basically algorithmically generated, by the Netflix machine. Like, what kind of content do people want? It's what you just described, Ben, perhaps. Do you think this is just going to create base kind of broad stuff that would just be like the lowest common denominator? Or do you think this has the potential for like creative expression?
I'm very glad that you brought up the concept of imagination, because when humans think of how to define success for the creation of a machine consciousness, there's often a very easy, very self-referential error to make. And that error is thinking that the aim should be for verisimilitude, for something that seems very much like the human mind, very much capable of the human imagination. But I posit that is not success. Success, if success is to be defined in this field, is a completely original imagination. You know what I mean? It's AI that is making stories for AI that do not necessarily involve humans or the human mind. And if civilization can make a truly distinct creative imagination, then, maybe all the horrible stuff between the first time people discovered fire and the day that happens will be in some way worth it. Which I'm right. Trying to be optimistic. I'm not super great at this.
Totally. No, I think that was beautifully said, Ben.
It really was. But now I'm thinking what we need to do, Ben, is get images of motherboards and CPUs and RAM, feed all of that into the system, and then see what kind of real machine gaze we can get, where it's like CPUs in weird places.
Wow. Yeah. What would like pleasurable content, what would the equivalent of machine learning pornography be? Would it be math? Would it be like sexy math? Is that a thing? Would humans even get it? You know what I mean? Would you be like, oh no, I caught my personal assistant. I caught Alexa doing the dirty calculus again. I don't know. It's a weird world to live in, but
just like typing 69 over and over.
Yeah, exactly.
But again, like, well, what's the frame of reference for what it is unless it thinks about it in a human world?
From sin to sine and cosine, yeah.
Exactly. I heard a really good point about sort of this. I've been really getting into this podcast called Blank Check with Griffin and David. It's like a film kind of critique podcast, but they were talking about the movie Interstellar. And if you'll remember, there's a robot in it called TARS that's really neat because it just kind of looks like a wall, but it also like sort of like pops out with these little appendages that can like do different things. And the point they made was, why would, if we were going to build an android, as we've seen in every science fiction film ever since the beginning of, cinema, why would we make it look like a person? We already have a person. We have people that can do people things. If we were going to build an effective android, like for like war or something, it should be a form that we are incapable of replicating with human body, like a moving wall that can generate, arms and become different shapes as needed. And that kind of outside of the box thinking, I think, requires, I don't know, a human mind in some ways. It's just interesting. I thought it was a really good point.
Could also be a medium-sized canine.
Yes, very much so. One capable of carrying a serious firepower on its back. This is a world in which you listening today and your descendants may very well live in soon. Would love to hear your take on this. Is this overall a good thing? Is this just the ego level set that human civilization needs? Or is it the end? I am hoping that machine imagination and human imagination will be different enough that both can coexist and perhaps even in some way complement one another. And I'm trying to be optimistic. And while I'm being optimistic, just to close this out, on air, I wanted to thank everybody, and Matt and Noel and Paul, I wanted to thank you guys specifically. I was out previously, and you guys held down the fort with a cavalcade of voicemails from a very special listener mail segment. I am going to, maybe toward the end of the year, talk a little bit more about what went on backstage, but everything is fine, as the dog says in the burning house. And we are all collectively grateful for every single one of you conspiracy realists who have tuned in. You are, again, the most important part of the show. I never get tired of saying that. We can't wait to hear from you. What's your crypto scam? Don't send us the link. What are you thinking about when you think about workplace surveillance? Necessary evil? Or just another step toward a big brother society, or as Matt said, a nanny state? And what is the future? I mean, once we get past the pornography, what is the future of imagination in the mind of a machine? We cannot wait to hear from you. We try to make it easy to find us online.
Oh, the internet is rife with stuff they don't want you to know, communication options. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube at the handle Conspiracy Stuff, or Conspiracy Stuff Show on Instagram.
Yes, you can use your mouth to contact us and your phone. Call 1-833-STDWYTK. Let us know if we can use your name and voice on the air. Give yourself a cool nickname. That's a part of the whole scenario, too. And you've got 3 minutes. Say whatever you'd like. Anything in the whole wide world. Use it how you will. Well, except for machine prawn. Let's not do that. Let's not do that anymore. No drones, no fleshy navel created knuckles. But it's also hard to do on an audio format. But if you've got too much to say that won't fit into those 3 minutes, please, please, please send us a good old-fashioned email. We are
conspiracy@iHeartRadio.com.
Stuff They Don't Want You to Know is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.